2024 SEC Media Days kicked off this past Monday, and Coach Brian Kelly and his LSU Tigers opened up the proceedings, offering up their outlook of what fans can expect out of this upcoming football season. Kelly sounded optimistic. His chosen players for the event, quarterback Garrett Nussmeier, tight end Mason Taylor, and linebacker Harold Perkins, all sounded optimistic. In fact, optimism was the name of the game as far as LSU's messaging went on Monday. But the big question on most people's minds, what about the defense? Can Kelly's rebuilt defensive coaching staff prevent a repeat of last year's, let's say, less than stellar showing? After a word from our sponsor, we'll hear from Tiger Rag magazine editor Todd Horne and Jeff Palermo, the news and sports director of the Louisiana Radio Network, as they sit down with someone who was present for the event, Michael Cauble, the sports director at WBRZ, to discuss his thoughts on this year's media days, what Coach Kelly and his players had to say, and what SEC football fans can expect as we head into the fall. I'm your host, Jake McMains, and we'll be back right after this.
July is jumping at your East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Lots of books are being read as part of their summer reading program. Adults are finding the way of nature through Tai Chi classes, while little ones gear up for back to school with enrichment programs like Big Buds and Carver Cubs. And for teens, how about Twinkie Wars, Bubble Science, or Percy Jackson Trivia? Go online at ebrpl.com to learn more. That's ebrpl.com.
Y'all ready? Yeah. Let's go. Come on.
Tiger Rag Radio is on the air.
Let's crank this thing up.
We're statewide, breaking down the latest happenings with LSU athletics.
This is us.
Hear from the coaches,
Put together a defense that puts us in a position to win the SEC.
the players,
Having fun and we working, baby. That's it, baby.
the recruits,
Show some passion and some heart.
and those who cover the Fighting Tigers of LSU and the
All
SEC.
those things are going to be there, which are important.
It's 2 hours of nonstop LSU
What
talk.
a privilege. I mean, you get to represent LSU.
Tiger Rag Radio is brought to you by Cummins. Cummins creates power solutions that the world depends on. Helm Paint and Decorating. The paint experts of Louisiana. Louisiana Beef Industry Council. Max Home. And the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Get ready to talk Tigers with producer Jackson Blackman and our hosts, Todd Horne and Jeff Palermo.
Three great players that are better people than they are players.
This is Tiger Rag Radio.
Yeah, we continue on Tiger Rag Radio. Jeff Palermo, News and Sports Director of Louisiana Radio Network, along with Tiger Rag editor Todd Horne. We go to the Max Home hotline for the first time tonight, and we bring in WBRZ-TV Sports Director Michael Cauble, who is in Dallas for SEC Media Days. Michael, thanks a lot for joining the show. How you doing tonight?
Doing well, Jeff. Yeah, thanks for having me. We're halfway home here in Dallas.
What's the vibe like in SEC Media Days in Dallas as opposed to Atlanta, Birmingham, Nashville?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of Oklahoma talk today. I can't imagine what it's going to be like tomorrow with Texas coming in. And everybody just kind of, getting their feel for what the two new members are like. Obviously there's a lot of Oklahoma media that is having to get used to life in the SEC and ask all the questions. And there's a lot of, regular SEC media that's kind of interested in what their thoughts are on joining the conference and what it'll be like going to play at their venue and such. So it's different. I don't know if it's too much, like if it's too many days. It's almost starting to feel like the College World Series where like it just goes on too long and it could probably be like an email, But no, it's good. It's good to hear from everybody. There's some ups and downs. Not a lot of dynamic speakers. Today was kind of like the monotone crowd with Kirby Smart and Brent Venables and Josh Heupel, and Eli Drinkwitz. So it wasn't like some guys that were really going to command a room, but they all did well. I thought Venables had a good message, basically saying that they're welcoming the challenge, kind of like your little sounder there of Brian Kelly, wanting to have the bright lights in Broadway. I think he was kind of saying the same thing. He had a good quote where he said, they're running towards the SEC. So, everything's carrying the messaging. Nothing crazy's happened. No drama or shots being taken or anything. So it's been pretty par for the course so far, I'd say.
Michael, what was your biggest takeaway yesterday on LSU Day when LSU opened it up and Brian Kelly was there? I'm just curious if it sounded as optimistic live as it did back here in Baton Rouge on computer streaming.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think so. I think, and I kind of, I agree with Saban. I think LSU's kind of flying under the radar. It's one of the questions I asked Brian when we had, our group with him is, I just feel like, they got a lot of pieces. Can that defense get any better? And if it can, then they got a real legitimate shot. So, yeah, I think optimistic is a great word to use to describe it. I guess my takeaway would probably be along that same vein of just Garrett Nussmeier being real ready for his opportunity. And I think maybe the thing that surprised me the most was Brian Kelly talking about how he's really commanding the room, commanding the team, and not letting anybody get in the way of his moment with this team. So that was really reassuring. It was interesting to hear. I think most of the other things we've kind of heard and expected, but maybe commanding the moment that Garrett, has the opportunity to do would probably be the thing that stood out the most.
What would you say was the most surprising thing to you, say, that Kelly said or that you picked up from one of the players?
Probably when he said he wanted to score an explanative amount of points in Tiger Stadium and the social media posts. So just and then seeing him riding that bull in the photo, Brian. There's a looseness to Brian Kelly that I don't think anybody that had seen him prior to LSU would have expected him to have. And just his ability to cut loose a little bit and have a little bit of fun and kind of understand he doesn't have to take himself so seriously is the most surprising thing to me, quite honest. Like when I saw him on the bull, I was shocked. They got other coaches on there. I was surprised to see that too. Not as surprised to see Shane Beamer up on there, taking a picture. But it's. I guess I'm a little surprised at how relaxed he is. Given, and maybe you can do that when you have a guaranteed $100 million contract, sitting on your desk. So, but it's good to see. I think everybody kind of needs that, right? I think the team needs to play loose and comfortable and hair on fire. I mean, I think it's one of the issues they had last year with defense is not enough attack, too much react, and we'll see if they can clean it up a little bit this year.
Well, and were you able to spend any time with Harold Perkins yesterday and get a feel? Jeff was asking me if I felt like Harold was on the same page and willing to move inside and, supportive of doing that. I thought he sounded very convincing to me that he was. What were your thoughts?
I think so. I think he's excited to add the weight. I think he's excited to, have teams stop running away from him and scheming opposite of, wherever he's at. But he still has to get out there and do it, right? And that's the big thing. Like, he is an undersized linebacker wherever he plays. Now, he has amazing physical skills that enable him to still, be destructive and make plays, but they're going to have to tap into that. And, Brian talked about him having one of the highest GPAs. Well, he's going to have to play a lot smarter on the field too. Brian brought him here. It was, it's one of the questions we asked Brian was, why bring Harold Perkins? He's not a super speaker. He's not a guy that does a lot of interviews. He's not a guy that really commands the room or is loud. He's a pretty quiet, reserved guy. And Brian said, look, he's got a high GPA. He's actually a funny guy. He's outgoing, and I want you all to see that. I think Harold did as good a job that he could, but we don't get to see that in the 20 minutes that we have with him or what have you. But he was engaging. I was able to sit with him. We have a private room where we do some interviews, and able to sit with him and just talk a little bit. And you can see some of that shine through. I think the comfort level for him is going to be big too. And I think having Greg Penn, having the Weeks brothers there, I told Harold yesterday, this is probably one of the deepest linebacker cores that I can remember in quite some time. They've got options, and they all play a little different style of football. Can they complement enough to, be a dynamic group and maybe mask some of the deficiencies along the defensive front? That's still a question that remains to be answered.
Do you think that the defensive communication problems and, I guess, relationships with the coaching staff have completely gone away now with Blake Baker and Bo Davis and Corey Raymond and et cetera?
Those issues,
yeah.
You mean those issues persisting?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they go away overnight. I mean, when you're talking about relationship building, that's not something that's going to solve itself with just a new hire. It's an investment, and the coaches have to be invested, but the kids have to return that investment. This team, the guys that we talked to, did talk about doing a lot more together, being around each other a lot more. Again, does it translate to the field on Saturdays? I don't know. I think there's an opportunity for them to be improved, but there's still some big holes, that this team has along the front and the secondary, and they could get exposed just as quickly as Florida State did it in week 1 last year. So it'll be a work in progress. I think maybe those relationships will help solve some of those issues when they arise. That's one of the things that Harold did say. I said, what's it going to take to be successful this season? And his answer was basically understanding that adversity is coming and being prepared for it when it does. His ability, I guess, to not expect everything to be perfect, but still play through it and figure it out on the fly. I think that's what I took away from the way he was answering the question, was that, he'll have to be a little bit more resilient, I guess, in his approach and his attitude.
Wrapping it up here with Michael Cauble, WBRZ-TV sports director. He joins us on the Max Home Hotline. So, Michael, what was it like interviewing Nick Saban at SEC Media Days and knowing that you weren't asking him about Alabama and how their team looks?
Yeah, it definitely took me back. I was trying to think yesterday when I was sending out that tweet, when was the last time I literally did a one-on-one with Saban? And it was 20 years ago for sure. So it was a little interesting. He's great. He's gracious, and I love him in his TV analyst role.
Yes.
I always have. Whenever he would do, guest appearances, I told him that yesterday. He's always been so good at that. I'm excited to see him continue to do that. But it is a little different, and I've told the people that I've talked to about it, he is so sharp when it comes to football, and just kind of talking to him off camera. And it was interesting to see kind of, just maybe age catch up with him a little bit. So I'm excited to see what he can contribute this year. I'm glad he's on with the game day crew. Like I said, maybe we'll get him back in Baton Rouge at some point. And I did tell him, I wish he would have retired a year ago. That way he could have taken part in the celebration of the 20th anniversary of the title. That would have been cool. I think I look forward to, I guess, Baton Rouge softening their approach or their hatred towards Nick, and really, giving that appreciation that he's probably due for everything that he did for LSU and kind of setting them on this trajectory so many years ago.
Yeah, I think, God willing, if Nick is still around in 2028 when they celebrate the 25th anniversary, I think he'll be on the field with those guys. I really do.
Yeah. Get them all back. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. I think LSU fans at that point will let bygones be bygones, and he'll get a huge ovation when he's introduced. So.
Yeah, I did joke with him, though. I said there's probably not going to be any statues on campus.
No, I don't think we're going that far. Not going that far, that's for sure. Hey, Michael, thanks a lot. Enjoy the next couple days in Dallas, and the season's right around the corner.
All right, that's it for today's episode. A big thank you to Michael, Jeff, and Todd for their discussion. We'll be back later this week, but until then, stay tuned to TigerRag.com for all your latest LSU sports news.